Dieting deloads. So imagine this, right? There's a Honda Civic. Okay, so here's how to lose as much fat as possible while losing as minimal muscle. So I did this back in September 2023. I just came back from India. I'm in the UK, a little bit of a trip. Obviously, with all that time traveling, you can't really be working out consistently or as consistently as you wanted to. But in September 2023, I basically just lost 5 pounds in 5 days. I started to actually see some of my abs, and then when I actually saw my abs for the first time ever, right? Because if you know my story, I used to be obese, pretty obese, right? I decided, okay, let's go bulk and let's see how this goes. So now I'm in that stage where I'm feeling a little bit too fat. So I'm gonna go cut down again, but that's probably why you're interested in this video, because you want to learn how I cut back then and how I'm gonna go cut now, knowing more things than I did back then. So if you don't know me, I'm Amon. I help people with mental and physical health reframes. Reframes like these. So the first idea is cut slowly. So a slower cut is gonna help you maintain more muscle and also reduce as much fat as possible, while also allowing for things like birthdays, celebrations, just things like that. It's gonna be a lot easier in the long run. So reduce your calories from maintenance very slowly and in a small amount, and keep on continuing. Basically, what this allows you to do is have a little bit of a buffer. So every time you hit a plateau and you're not really losing any weight, you just decrease your calories a little bit more, increase cardio a little bit more. Instead of just like what I did back then, I was at 2,000 to 3,000 calories per day. It just depended, right, if I was working out or not. And I immediately cut down to 1,500 calories per day. From there, I was also doing a lot of cardio. I'm in the gym every single day. That obviously got down a lot of fat really quickly. But the problem with that was I hit a plateau very quickly after the 5 days. So I lost a lot of that weight and a lot of the, appearance of looking fat. I still had obviously a little bit of fat left, but from that point, I couldn't really do much more. What I was gonna do was just eat 1,000 calories per day. I was gonna lose all my muscle, right? So I kind of just gave it all at the start, and I had nothing, no ammunition in the back, right? I just fired it all. And the reason that cutting slower actually works a lot better is because your body actually reduces the amount of calories that it burns every day because you're eating less calories. So it goes into sort of a famine mode, and at that point it starts to reduce calories. So if you cut all those calories at the start and you have no ammunition left over, and it's going to be a lot harder because you're not going to have those calories left over to start cutting more and more. So imagine there's two gym goers. There's Sarah Galan and there's Future You. So Sarah Galan, he basically just did what I did back in September 2023. He cuts very heavily. He starts a lot of cardio immediately, right? His maintenance is 2,300 calories and he starts with a 1,500 calorie cut. I mean, he thinks he's Chris Bumstead for real. He sees good results for the first week, but after that, he doesn't really see anything. So he tries to reduce his calories more and more, and he tries to increase cardio, but nothing really works. He doesn't have any ammunition left over.
N-word.
And then he just starts thinking, okay, he just tried to justify in his mind that he doesn't actually look that fat. He could maybe try bulking a little, maintenance. He just tries the other avenues because the cutting avenue is not working for him. So then he switches over, and then he's in that stage of the permacut where he keeps on bulking. And then as soon as he feels he's a little bit too fat, he just starts cutting again. But then he cuts in this way that he actually does it, that it makes him go back to the bulk really quick. But then Future You decide to cut slowly. Let's say your maintenance is 2,300 calories, you go to 1,900 calories. So that's 300 to 400 calories under your maintenance. That's a good way to start. But then Future You go 1,900 calories. You aren't going that crash diet that Sarah Galan does. You're not seeing immediate results, but you actually trust the process, and over the weeks you start to see that you're getting a little bit leaner. You wake up one day, you look at yourself in the mirror, and you see that you're actually not looking that bad. And this continues. It doesn't just stop there because you see going slowly. It continues and it starts to compound compared to just giving it all at the start and you have nothing else to give. Okay, so here's part 2, dieting deloads. Dieting deloads. So it's kind of like deloads while you're working out, but instead it's for your diet. So it's not exactly like a cheat week, but it's just more of a taking your foot off the gas, right? So imagine this, right? There's a Honda Civic, 600 horsepower, all-wheel drive.
All I'm saying is I'm back. This wasn't a special.
Even doing that, right, it has a lot of power, right? And same like you have a lot of power. You can, if you wanted, you could go and, do this hard diet and you'd probably find out a way to continue with it, right? But obviously we don't want to leave, our bodies up to chance and keep on having this happen. And 2-3 years down the line, we realize that we made a mistake. We want to do what's right, even if it's a little bit less efficient right now. We're going to do the less efficient thing for a long amount of time than the most efficient thing for basically a week or two. But imagine the 600 horsepower Civic, right? It's banging through the gears, right? But every time it revs, it has to, let go of the revs. It has to put in the clutch. It has to go into the next gear, and then it can let go of the clutch and start going again, right? This is kind of like a deload. So instead of trying to not shift, I guess, you're giving yourself a little bit of time to breathe before you go back into it, right? It might not be the best analogy, but it is an analogy. But even a lot of, bodybuilders, they do deloads, right? Like Arnold Schwarzenegger, he did deloads, right? And obviously the way that you do deloads is different. So what he would do, he just completely not lift for a whole week. But instead of trying to actually, cut and continue the cut, you would just go back to maintenance calories. So this isn't similar to perma-cutting. This basically allows for more fat loss with your dieting compared to if you didn't do deloads, because the way that this works, right, it allows your body to go back to the normal. So you know how your body goes into sort of a famine mode where it reduces calories that it burns because it's not getting as many calories in. So this would kind of reset that, make your body burn more calories. But then when you go back into the cut, then you're having that kind of initial phase where you lose a lot of fat, and you're having that happen all over again. And obviously with the maintenance phase, you're not going to be gaining much muscle or losing a lot of fat. But at that point, if you get that reset, then you'll be able to get that, curve again. And then you go back up to, maintenance curve again, and then continue. Right? So obviously it's going to be a little bit longer, but we all like to go hard, right? If you're like me, you want to do as much as possible right now and, go hard, go as much as you can, right? Just completely push through, right? But we're used to routine and such, but this is basically the most efficient way that I've seen online, and this is what I'm actually learning now. So this would probably be a better idea, right? Do what's most efficient, and it's also a little bit easier on us, and we get to enjoy food a little bit more. If you have a birthday party or something, a diet deload every 4 weeks is probably going to give you the best results. But again, our two beloved guys, Sarah and the future version of you. So Sarah Glenn, goes hard. He's kind of like us, right? But he just has the 1% worse decisions, and that's what makes his downfall compared to future you. So he goes hard, he's done cutting before you are, but per the studies, he's lost less fat and has actually lost a little bit of muscle during that cutting phase. So let's say his cutting phase is 8 weeks. In that phase, he's done and dusted, right? And then he goes back to a bulk, but then future you take 10 or 12 weeks, right? Let's just say 10 weeks. Your cut is taking a little bit longer, but you lose a little bit more fat because every 4 weeks you do that diet deload and you get that curve again where you lose a lot more fat. And on top of that, it's easier for you, and you know that if you're ever feeling a little bit fat, go back on this protocol because it works for you, right? Obviously you're gonna need to modify it, but you lose more fat overall. You could gain muscle, but in most cases you're gonna maintain a lot of it, but you're gonna lose a lot more fat and kind of maintain your muscle. It took you 10 weeks, but you lost more fat in that time. And if we extrapolate this over a couple of years, in 2-3 years, Sarah Glenn, he's not gonna have the best body that he could have, but you're losing a lot more fat and maintaining your muscle, so you're gonna have that 1% advantage on him every single time. And extrapolate that over a couple of years, you're gonna be having no issues having abs, and you're gonna be completely jacked. And Sarah Glenn, he's gonna be on his next cut trying to get those abs again. So that's really where it comes into play in the diet deload. So we basically take a long-term approach, thinking in years or even decades. Sarah Glenn, he thinks in weeks. And the third one, which I recommend a lot, is intermittent fasting. I'm going to be completely honest, I haven't really been as strict with my intermittent fasting recently. I've been falling off a little bit on my diet, but that will probably be my next video on how to actually get out of a rut. So I'm going to follow that advice and you're going to see the results. But basically, this is the main thing that I did to lose all that fat and weight that I did when I started. So 70 pounds of fat lost with just intermittent fasting. Probably not fat, but majority just weight, right? Ben Baller did this as well with no diet rules.
Yeah. How'd you do it?
Intermittent fasting, straight up. Just 14 hours, I do not eat nothing.
10 hours I eat.
I also did this, with only a couple diet rules, with no sugar and no seed oil or vegetable oil. The only oil that I would probably have my food cooked with was mustard oil. There's two main ways to actually intermittent fast. So there's hour schedules. That's what I love. That's what I do. Normally I do around 18-hour fast and then 6 hours of eating. So I break the fast at school time, which is lunch, 11 to 12 p.m. That's when I break it. And then I try to finish around 4 to 5 p.m. Sometimes it'll spill over to 6 p.m. but then I have that extra that 6 p.m. time schedule. So I have that 6-hour time schedule, so it still fits. But you can have 14 hours of eating, 10 hours of fasting, whatever works. It just has to be a schedule. It has to be rigid, right? You can also have a day schedule. So for 5 days you eat at maintenance calories, and for 2 days you basically eat nothing, or you eat very little calories, 200 to 300 calories of just pure protein, because you got to keep that muscle up somehow, right? And for best fat loss, according to Andrew Huberman, you've probably seen his podcast if you're watching me, his analysis of the studies on the topic of intermittent fasting for weight loss and also for fat loss. They basically say don't eat 1 hour after you actually wake up. So that's covered for me because I go to the gym at that time. I can't really eat anything there. And also don't eat anything up until your bedtime. So 3 to 4 hours, right? I try to keep that because if I have dinner really pushed back at 6 p.m. then at 8 p.m. that's only 2 hours of time before bed. So it's obviously not the best, but still it's kind of a general guideline and a rule, best practices, but sometimes you can't always follow them. And then also walking or light exercise after eating a heavy meal. That also will help you get into a fasted state very quickly because you have these glucose stores after you eat something. So light walking, that's going to attack the glucose directly. Light exercise will also, but then if you start working out too heavily, then it's going to start attacking different parts of your body. Again, our two favorite guys, Sarah Galan and the future version of you. Sarah Galan, he listens to the advice from his obese doctor. He decides that he should eat 200 to 300 calories throughout the day, many different meals, and obviously you can't stick to it. Who actually eats that? I've always been so puzzled when people say you should be eating. Do you hear that? That guy has a pop and bang tune that is really fun. That's why I love this road. But obviously Sarah Galan, he eats 200 to 300 calories per meal multiple times through the day for his cut. He can't really stick to it. I have never seen anyone succeed with that. So he goes back to a bulk. He starts rationalizing in his mind that he doesn't actually look that fat. And then he starts to bulk again, and then he thinks he's too fat, he starts cutting, goes through the same cycle over and over again. And then if he does stick to it, he's a lot more hungry throughout the day, and he's kind of only focused on food, right? But then the future version of you listen to this advice that I've collected from all over YouTube, these studies from my own life. You start off with a pretty relaxed method of intermittent fasting, maybe 12-12. Eat for 12 hours, don't eat for 12 hours. Pretty simple. You slowly start to tighten it up. At one point, when I was trying to do that in September 2023, I was doing about 22 and 2. So I would eat nothing for 22 hours, and the 2 hours that I came back from school, that's just all eating. And then after that, do whatever. And at that point, you're used to it. You're not really stressing about it. You don't actually get hungry anymore up until when you try to eat, when it's your time to eat. Obviously, you're not optimizing the protein timing as much, but it's a lot more enjoyable to do intermittent fasting because if you eat nothing for the whole day, you start focusing on work, your mind is clear. And then as soon as it's time to eat, you eat. You just stuff your face with as much food as possible, right? You can do as much as you want, right? Obviously, don't eat very high dense calorie foods. But if you eat pretty low calorie dense foods, you can stuff your face with a lot and you'll feel really full, but you still will be cutting. Either way, come to the line, you're gonna have a lot more of a healthy body, a better immune system, and you're gonna be eating like a king when your fasting period drops. So a couple of realizations that might help take this whole video down a little bit better into your head, I guess. So a couple of realizations I've had from all of these things trying to follow it. So it does take a lot of time. I did go on a crash diet and I cut off a lot of my weight very quickly, but it's obviously not the best because I lost almost all my strength. I used to bench 135, September 2023 or before that. And then when I went on that cut, I could barely bench anything, right? Even right now, I'm just back up to 100 pounds, but my muscle did come back. and the size did come back pretty quickly after the cut, but the strength did not come back as well, right? Or as well as I would have wanted it to. But I'm just trying to optimize for one thing only, being big and looking good. But when you're cutting, there's two things happening to your body. So what I was talking about, famine mode. So your body thinks that there's not enough food, that there won't be enough food in the future, so it just starts storing as much of, everything into fat if it can, and that's also why you shouldn't like go back into a gigantic bulk after a cut. Have a little bit of time as a maintenance period and then go into a bulk. But then on top of that, it takes glycogen from all over your body and it starts using that as energy sources, and then it starts switching over to ketones, which is your from your fat. But then it just makes your body look smaller because glycogen would be filling up your biceps or something, your chest, right? And when it takes away that glycogen, it just kind of looks a little bit like more compact, but it just looks a little bit smaller. So that's one thing that you're going to need to know. It will look smaller, but obviously the muscle is still there. And the second part of it is your body actually starts to reduce the amount of calories that it burns because of famine mode. So again, your body starts thinking that like we're not going to get much food later on. We might not. It's not guaranteed. So we need to make the most of the food that we actually have. So it reduces the amount of calories it burns to be more efficient. And our bodies are basically efficiency machines, right? It's more efficient than the M1 MacBook Pro on battery life. So who do you want to be, Sarah Kalan or the future version of you, where it's so easy to cut? You can cut whenever you want, and you can basically have abs for the rest of your life. Now, I don't know about you, but I want to be that future version of myself. Obviously, there's setbacks and everything. I'll be encountering them, but I'll come up to solutions with them and share them on this YouTube channel. So make sure you always, if you ever have any setbacks or you're experiencing, drop them in the comments. Let me know about them, right? This one guy, he already let me know about that like a couple of weeks ago, and I try to solve it for him in the comments. If it's like a pretty prevalent issue, I'll make a video on it. I'll do a lot of research, some trial and error for myself, and fix it for you. That's what I want this YouTube channel to be about. Like, I already just got this camera, the Sony A7 Mark III, expensive. If you like this video, I have a very in-depth video on intermittent fasting and how you can actually implement it. So just watch that video. It's going to be somewhere on screen here. It'll also be in the description below. And I'll see you in that video. Watch that video and just remember, this is what heart feels like.